my question, I guess, was I called the Attorney General's office, Raul Labrador, and his communications office said they didn't have anything to do with it. They didn't know anything about it. They asked their criminal investigation section as well. They don't know anything. So I'm wondering if the Attorney General's office has to be involved in something like this. That's question number one.
Illegal voting or fraudulent voting is simply a crime of local dimensions. It falls under the province of the local prosecutor to investigate and charge if charges would be brought. That is the case here. It does not necessarily involve the Attorney General. In fact, the Attorney General would not ordinarily be brought in unless the local prosecutor requests.
Okay, okay. So that's completely up to the county prosecutor in this case. Now, I called the Secretary of State's office and I figured they have everything to do with elections. Should the Secretary of State's office have been notified by Fremont County officials?
Well, certainly the Secretary of State's office is very active in trying to discern any kind of pattern of illegal voting anywhere in the state. Where this is extremely localized in a local election, although interestingly enough, of such dimension that it potentially might have affected the outcome of a very close election. The Secretary of State would be interested, and I would assume at some point would be informed and follow very closely what's happening here. But again, this is a local matter, a local election, and the Secretary of State is not typically involved in presenting those to the ballot.
Okay. Well, obviously, Local News 8 is going to keep investigating this, and we have been reaching out to the people involved and the people who were arrested for this. We were chatting on the phone earlier. You said something about how there is a likely defense here and that some residency laws are fluid. Could you explain a little bit more?
Well, of course, anyone charged with any crime is presumed to be innocent until the otherwise is proved beyond a reasonable doubt. The concept of residency is a very fluid one, and one can change their residency. It simply has to be the place where they do reside and intend to permanently reside. That, of course, can change from time to time. It can change without much notice to the official organs of the state. However, the badges that one would usually look for would be a driver's license, car licensing, payment of property taxes. So it's often not very difficult to figure out where someone's actual residence is at a particular time, but they do have the ability to change it if they intend to permanently reside someplace else.
Okay. Well, that is well, great news to hear for, of course, the other side of the story. Are there any questions I didn't ask that I should have asked, or what you were something you were hoping to talk about?
No. Well, a very unusual set of these circumstances is that this election was so close, and compared to most illegal or fraudulent voting allegations, the amount was so significant that, if true, might have affected the outcome of the election. That's very unusual in any election, any place in the country these days.
Okay,
I have a question actually.
that's a question.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
you-
And if I can't answer it,
Whole
Mr.
thing
Director, I'll have to
online,
bring in
just
the
so
big
you
dog.
know.
now you've been involved with law in Idaho for a long time and the political system. Can you think of other instances in the past in Idaho where so many people were charged with illegally voting in an election?
Usually these cases of fraudulent voting come up just one or two at a time. There's a current investigation going on in western Idaho about immigrants or people who do not have U.S. citizenship allegedly voting improperly. But generally speaking, there appears to be no thread or organized activity such as is alleged here in any prior recent election fraud case.
Okay, good to know. Let's also talk about on the county prosecutor level. As a news organization, we were kind of expecting maybe a press release or some information because seven is kind of a lot in an election of 405 people. Uh, is it a surprise that a county prosecutor just might not want to say much while there's still an investigation?
Well, county prosecutors come in all shapes, flavors, and sizes, as do cases and as do defendants. And in a particular case, prosecutor may want to announce to the public the existence of charges for the purpose of deterring that kind of conduct in the future, even if the cases are not fully developed. Or in the alternative, it's certainly within the county prosecutor's province to simply go about his or her business.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, that is really great information to know as well. Can we also, well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Seth? All right. Well, next steps. Does a case like this, does this take years to find out what the outcome is, or does it just depend on the prosecutor's caseload?
No, I wouldn't expect this case to pend too inappropriately long. First of all, they have the right to a preliminary hearing, and that must be conducted within a certain number of days or weeks for somebody who is either in custody or wishes to move forward swiftly. I would expect that first step to be incumbent upon the court here in the next very few weeks. Thereafter, if moved to the district court by virtue of a finding of probable cause by a magistrate, the district court would take a plea of guilty or not guilty, set a trial in the case of a not guilty plea, and I would expect that to be litigated within the next relatively few months. This case won't particularly pend, as to any of these defendants, an extraordinary amount of time.
I do have one more question, and this is very hypothetical, and it's likely a question for the Secretary of State's office. So you don't have to answer if it's so far out there, but let's say it was proven that this election was just too small of a margin, and well, let's just say it's proven that the outcome of the election was affected by this. Would that make the results of the election null and void? How is that even handled?
Well, it's a bit too far to speculate as to what the impact on terms of an outcome of the election. Statistically, you have an election that was decided by approximately 9 votes. You have people here allegedly influencing it, though we don't know which way they voted, by approximately 7 votes. So much more investigation is required to determine what might impact the election and whether somebody either informally with the county clerk or formally by litigation would challenge this election. All of that's up in the air at this point.
And one more question. I'm hoping you could clarify this as a former attorney general. I specified in my story last night, I thought I clarified that the results of what a person votes, yes or no, or who they vote for, are private. However, we've had quite a few people emailing saying, well, why don't you investigate the people who voted yes? We never said how these people voted in this auditorium election. We don't know because that is secret. Could we please talk about your ballot is private? Could you just put that information out there?
Well, it's important to note, even though this election was a very close one, that there's no specific allegation and no ability at this early point to determine how any one of these individuals voted. Maybe yes, maybe no, but their votes are private, may well remain private through these entire proceedings. It's impossible to know how they voted and what effect that particular vote might have had on the election at this point, and perhaps at any point as this case proceeds.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to get that civics lesson out there for everyone. Seth, do you have another question?
No, you actually asked the question. I was wondering that what happens to the election.
We share the same brain cell sometimes.
Good. Well, send me a link to your story. My
Absolutely.
grandson in Texas is interested in all matters criminal, and this will be a new one for him.
Well,
So I'll
fantastic.
send him the story.
Absolutely. We'll get this written up. Thank you so much for your help today.